7 doctors told a billionaire his son had only 3 months to live, but what one humble maid did next left the entire medical world speechless. Stay with me, because this story will change the way you see love, life, and second chances. Before we begin this powerful story, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss our inspiring, life-changing content. If you find value in these stories, please like, share, and help grow this channel. This is more than just storytelling. Each story carries a deep moral lesson designed to inspire, heal, and uplift. Your son has only 3 months left, said 7 doctors to Billionaire, but the maid proved them wrong. I was the man who had everything. Private jets. Skyscrapers in my name. A net worth that soared past 10 digits. But none of it mattered. The day I was told my only son was dying. 7 doctors. 7 of the best. Each delivered the same verdict. 3 months. That was all the time my little boy had left. His name is Adam. Just 6 years old. He had my eyes, but none of my luck. The hospital room felt like a prison cell. White walls. Sterile air. And machines that beeped like ticking clocks counting down to tragedy. I used to believe money could fix anything. So I flew in specialists from across the world. Germany, Japan, Switzerland. I offered blank checks. I begged. I bribed. But no one could stop the disease eating away at my son. Something rare. Something cruel. And something science had no cure for. My wife had left years ago. Said I married business, not her. I could not blame her. But now I was alone. Except for Adam. And her. Her name was Lena. She was just the maid. At least, that is what I used to think. She had been with us for 4 years. Quiet. Dutiful. Invisible, almost. Until one night, I found her sitting beside Adam's bed, reading softly, a worn-out fairy tale book in her hands, tears gently slipping down her cheek. I was about to speak, but Adam smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "Daddy, can Lena stay?" His voice was so weak, it broke something inside me. She looked up, ashamed. Afraid I would be angry. But I just nodded. After that, everything began to change. She brought light into that sterile room. Lena talked to Adam like he was not dying, but living. Still living. Still fighting. She cooked meals the doctors called pointless. But Adam ate them. Not for the taste. For her. She sang to him at night. Folk songs in a language I never understood. But they seemed to reach someplace deeper than science ever could. One day, I asked her, "Why are you doing all this? You owe us nothing." She looked at me. Not with pity. Not with fear. With something stronger. "Because I know what it means to lose a child," she said. "My daughter, she had the same condition. And I had nothing. No money. No doctors. Only faith. Only love." I could not speak. Not then. But I listened. And I watched. For the first time in my life, I let someone else take control. Not a surgeon. Not a CEO. But a woman whose heart had been shattered, yet still beat for someone else's child. Weeks passed. Then a month. Then 2. The doctors kept checking. Then double-checking. Then arguing. "His cells are regenerating abnormally fast," one of them whispered. "We cannot explain it." But I could. It was not medicine. It was not science. It was her. The warmth of her presence. The meals made with care. The stories whispered in the quiet night. The love that wrapped Adam like a shield. I sat alone one evening. In my office. The skyline glittered beyond the glass. And for the first time, I wondered who I had become, and who I still could be. The 3rd month came, but the death sentence never did. Instead, Adam walked to me, his step slow, shaky, but real. He hugged me, and then looked up at her. "Lena." "Daddy," he said, "can she be my real mom now?" I froze. Those words, so innocent, so pure, but they hit me harder than any loss I had ever known. Lena looked at me, her hands trembling slightly. Tears welled in her eyes, but she said nothing. She waited, not for permission, not for praise, just the truth, my truth. I knelt beside Adam, held him close. His tiny arms wrapped around my neck, and I could feel the life pulsing back into him. I looked up at her. She tried to smile, but her lips quivered too much. "Adam," I said softly, "she has already been more of a mother than I could ever ask for." He grinned, and then, without asking, he took her hand, placed it in mine, and in that fragile moment, I felt something shift, not in the air, not in the room, but deep inside the part of me that had long been buried beneath deals, deadlines, and disappointment. We were 3 broken people, each carrying our own pain, each grieving something no one else could see. But somehow, in this quiet storm, we found one another, not by blood, not by obligation, but by the choices we made. In the silence between heartbreak and hope, the doctors wanted to publish a paper. They called it a miracle case. They offered interviews, documentaries, grants. I declined them all, because what happened was not meant for headlines. It was meant for healing. I stepped away from the boardrooms. I missed fewer sunsets. I started listening more than I talked. Adam got stronger. He painted. He laughed. He ran through the halls of our house, like they were forests filled with magic. And Lena, she stayed, not as the maid, not even as the savior, but as someone who chose love, when everyone else had chosen fear. One morning I found her, standing in the garden, where Adam now played every afternoon. She was looking at the sky, eyes closed, face tilted up to the sun. I stood behind her for a long time, just watching, breathing in the peace she somehow brought wherever she went. Then I whispered, "What if I told you I was ready to build a life worth remembering?" She turned. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, she smiled, without fear, without pain. She reached for my hand, the same way Adam once had. And I knew this was not the end of something. It was the beginning. We stood there in the morning light, surrounded by the soft rustle of leaves, and the laughter of a boy who had once been dying. The same boy who now chased butterflies barefoot, his joy unburdened by the weight of his past. I tightened my fingers around Lena's hand. It was small, warm, and steady, like her. "Do you ever think," I asked quietly, "that pain is what opens the door to real love?" She looked away for a moment, as if searching the horizon for an answer that had once nearly broken her. Then she nodded. "Yes. Pain makes space for the kind of love that heals." Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from memory. And in that moment, I realized I had never truly known love, until I saw someone carry it in silence, expecting nothing in return. That evening, Adam brought us a drawing. It was clumsy, scribbled in crayon, and framed with crooked stars and hearts. "This is our family," he beamed.
You, me, and Mommy Lena." She gasped. A hand flew to her mouth.
But I saw it. The tears slipping past her lashes.
Not sadness. Not even joy. Something deeper. Recognition.
She knelt beside him, hugging him like she was holding a second chance.
With both hands. I watched.
I let the moment settle into my soul. Because for the first time in decades, I was not thinking about tomorrow.
I was in this moment. And it was enough.
Weeks turned into seasons.
The leaves changed. And so did we.
I started waking up early.
Not for conference calls,
but for morning walks with Adam and Lena. His hands in ours. His laughter echoing through quiet streets. At night, I read him stories. On weekends, I built toy airplanes. And slowly, the man who once measured his worth in dollars began to measure it in smiles.
In healed hearts.
In dinner table conversations. With people who truly saw me. One evening, while Lena was tucking Adam into bed, I stood at the doorway, watching her trace her fingers over his forehead, whispering something soft, something sacred. She looked up and saw me. I smiled. She smiled back. And I thought, what kind of love is this that can walk into ruins
and plant flowers?
What kind of woman gives herself so fully to someone else's storm, without asking for shelter of her own? I walked into the hallway and paused at the portrait of my father, a man who built an empire, but never truly knew his son. I touched the edge of the frame. For the first time, I was not angry at him. I simply knew I would choose a different legacy. The following day, I made a decision. One that would change everything. I called a meeting with the board. Stepped down as CEO. Sold half my holdings. And used the money to fund a foundation for children with rare illnesses.
Named after Adam.
The headlines went wild. Billionaire gives it all away. They called it impulsive.
They called it foolish.
But they did not know the truth. I had already gained everything that ever mattered. That night, Lena stood in the doorway of my study. She had heard the news.
Seen the chaos.
Heard the whispers. She said nothing.
Just looked at me.
Eyes questioning.
And I said,
all my life, I chased more. But now, I finally know what enough feels like. And it looks a lot like you.
She crossed the room. Slowly. Deliberately. Then, she took my face in her hands. Not with passion. Not with pity. With presence. With peace.
And she whispered, you are not just saving others now. You are saving yourself. Her words did not just land in my ears. They settled somewhere beneath my ribs. Somewhere I had locked away for years. I closed my eyes. Let her hands anchor me. Let her truth unravel the knots I had tied around my own heart. I am trying, I whispered. Every day I am trying to be someone he can be proud of.
Lena smiled. A slow, soft smile.
The kind that makes you believe that maybe forgiveness is not a destination, but a journey you walk with someone willing to hold your hand through the dark. That weekend, we took Adam to the lake. Just a quiet trip. No headlines. No cameras. We packed sandwiches, brought blankets, and let the world fall away. Adam ran ahead, his laughter carrying across the still water, chasing dragonflies with a paper net, and shoes full of sand. Lena sat beside me on the dock, her feet in the water, her hair tucked behind her ear. By the breeze. For a while. We said nothing, just listened. To the waves. To the birds. to the silence between two people who had finally stopped running. Then she turned to me, her eyes softer than the sky above us. "Have you ever thought about what comes next?" she asked.
I looked at her.
At the woman who taught my son to live again, who taught me how to love again. And for the first time, I did not think in quarters or fiscal years.
I thought in gardens, in dinner tables,
in bedtime stories and sleepy kisses. "I do not want to live in skyscrapers anymore," I said. "I want to live in places that echo with laughter. I want to build a home that never needs walls to feel safe." She said nothing, but she reached for my hand, held it with the same steadiness she once offered my son when he was fading. And I knew, whatever came next, we would face it together. The seasons began to change again.
And with them, so did Adam. He began school, made friends,
got his first scraped knee, and his first gold star. Every morning, I packed his lunch. Every night, I kissed his forehead and whispered, "You are my miracle." Sometimes, he would smile. Other times, he would simply say, "Tell Mommy Lena good night too." And she would be waiting in the hallway, smiling through her quiet tears. One evening, while tucking him into bed, he asked me, "Why did God almost take me away?" I was not ready for the question. No father ever is. But I sat beside him, took a deep breath, and said, "Maybe so you could remind me what it means to live."
He blinked slowly, then nodded.
Like his little soul already understood what mine had only just begun to learn. Later that night, I stood outside Adam's door. Lena joined me, her head resting gently on my shoulder. We listened to him breathe. And in that soft rhythm, we heard the quiet promise of a future that once seemed impossible. The hallway was dim, but it felt brighter than any boardroom I had ever stood in. Lena's presence beside me was steady, like a lighthouse in a storm I had long forgotten how to name.
We did not speak.
We did not need to. Some moments deserve silence. Some love stories speak loudest in stillness. After a while, she slipped her fingers into mine,
and I held on,
not out of fear, but gratitude. The next morning, Adam ran into our bedroom, his hair messy, his cheeks flushed with excitement. "Can we go back to the lake today?" he asked. "It feels like where we became a real family."
Lena smiled. Her eyes searched mine, and I nodded. "Yes, we can." But before I could stand, Adam leaned against my chest and whispered, "Daddy, do you think my old heart is gone forever?" I paused. My throat tightened. "No," I said, placing my hand over his chest. "I think it grew into something stronger. A heart that remembers pain, but beats for joy." He smiled. The kind of smile that stays with you long after the room goes quiet. We spent that day by the lake, not doing anything extraordinary. Skipping stones, sharing lunch, watching clouds drift like slow-moving dreams. And somewhere between the laughter and the quiet moments, I realized I no longer feared time. I was not waiting for the next crisis. I was not haunted by what we had survived. I was living, truly living. As the sun dipped low, and the water shimmered gold, Adam curled up beside Lena, his head resting in her lap. She hummed a lullaby I had heard her sing in the hospital room months ago, a melody that once kept my son alive. When hope was just a whisper, I sat beside them, no longer the billionaire, no longer the man with everything and nothing. I was a father, a partner, a witness to grace. The world still buzzed outside. Phones rang. Markets shifted. Headlines screamed. But none of it reached us here. Not on this quiet shore. Not in this fragile, sacred circle. We had built from broken pieces and soft strength. And as stars began to scatter across the night sky, Adam looked up at both of us and said, "I like our life now. It feels like it's wrapped in love." Lena's eyes filled. I kissed his forehead. And in the deep quiet of that moment, I made a vow, not with words, but with presence. I would never leave this circle. I would protect it, nurture it, live for it, because this was the true legacy, the one no fortune could ever buy. The fireflies began to appear, little pulses of golden light weaving through the dusk, like tiny lanterns blessing the life we were quietly building. Adam's breathing slowed, his small hand still wrapped around Lena's. She stroked his hair gently, her lullaby now a quiet hum that settled into the night. I watched them, my heart full and still learning how to carry so much peace. Years ago, I had stood on the top floor of my tallest building. Looking out over the city, I thought I had conquered. But I felt nothing. Now, sitting barefoot on the grass beside my son and the woman who saved him, I felt everything. Later, when we carried Adam inside, his arms draped around both our shoulders, he whispered sleepily, "Thank you for not giving up on me." We paused at the stairs. Lena kissed his cheek and said, "You never gave up on yourself. We just walked with you until you could run again." Adam smiled, eyes barely open, then nestled his head against her shoulder. We put him to bed together. Lena pulled the blanket to his chin. I turned off the light. But even in the dark, the room felt bright, alive. Downstairs, we sat in the living room. The house was quiet, except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall, the one I used to hate. I had always seen time as a threat, a countdown, a thief. Now it felt like a rhythm, a song we were learning how to dance to, together. Lena leaned into me. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. And for a moment, I wished I could freeze this night forever. But instead, I closed my eyes and simply let it be. We began waking up earlier, not to chase wealth, but to make breakfast together. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, messy counters, laughter spilling out of the kitchen like sunlight. Adam would sit on the stool, swinging his legs, telling us about his dreams. Sometimes they made no sense. Sometimes they were full of wonder. But always, they were his. Proof that he was still here, still dreaming, still healing. The foundation we started began to grow, not just in money, but in stories. Parents who were once told there was no hope found Lena, found her recipes, her stories, her presence. They wrote letters, sent pictures. Some even knocked on our door, just to say thank you. But Lena never sought the spotlight. She would read every letter, then tuck it quietly into a small wooden box she kept under our bed. "I do not need applause," she once said. "Just the knowing that a child gets one more chance." And I loved her more for that than any words could hold. One evening, after Adam had gone to sleep, we stood out on the porch. The stars above were brilliant, a sky full of quiet prayers. I turned to her. "I never told you this," I said, "but the day I met you, I barely noticed you." She raised an eyebrow. I smiled. "But now, I see you in everything good." Her expression softened. She stepped closer, and for a long moment,
we just held each other under the night sky.
No past, no pain, just the present,
and the quiet, steady beat of two hearts that had finally found their way home.
Years passed. Seasons changed.
But the miracle never faded. It grew. Adam became stronger with every year.
Not just in body, but in spirit. He excelled in school,
played piano with gentle fingers, and often said his music came from the place Mommy Lena made warm again. We never told him how close we came to losing him. We did not need to. He carried that wisdom in the way he lived, fully, kindly, and without fear. I returned to the business world, but not in the same way. I no longer chased power. I invested in healing, in families, in children like Adam, who just needed someone to believe they were worth fighting for. And always beside me
was Lena.
She became the quiet soul of every project, never asking for credit, always offering love. When we finally married, we did not throw a grand wedding, just a simple ceremony in the garden, beneath the tree where Adam once tied wishes in red ribbons. He stood beside us that day,
holding both our hands, and said,
"Now we are all each other's forever home." Today, when people ask me what changed me,
I say, everything, and one woman. Not a CEO, not a scientist,
not a miracle worker in the traditional sense,
just a woman
who refused to give up on a little boy
and helped a broken man.
Remember what love is supposed to feel like. The moral of this story: true wealth is not measured in numbers, but in the lives we touch,
the hearts we help heal,
and the love we dare to give when everything seems lost. Sometimes, the people we overlook carry the very strength that can save us.
And sometimes,
miracles do not come from medicine,
but from presence, from kindness,
from faith that refuses to die. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, share it,
comment below, and remind someone
you are never alone.